here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the English singer-songwriter, the one and only Maggie Holland, who I spoke to recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. So this is the interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Maggie, it's over to you.
Well, I just was taken to the just started up local folk club at an early age, and I was, let's see, about 1965, 66, I would have been 16, and yeah, I would say one of the first people I saw was Whiz Jones. He's still probably one of my musical heroes.
Yes.
And I sort of cottoned on to various people that the other members were going on about, like
Yes.
Bob Dylan and so on. So, I mean, there was pop music going on, Stones, Beatles, which I enjoyed, but I got into performing at at folk clubs at a very early age.
Yes, absolutely. And were your parents particularly keen or quite influential in your life, you know, to do with sort of music or culture?
My mother had died just after my 14th birthday. So no, and my father was, well, I suppose, grieving and actually not very interested in what I was doing. I could have run wild if I'd wanted. I suppose I did go a bit wild. Yes.
Well, yes. Well, gosh, that's always a bit of a moment. And whereabouts were you? Did you, you know, right?
Alton in Hampshire, northeast Hampshire.
And was the folk scene at that stage quite solid? Was it quite a big network right across the country at that point?
If it was, we weren't aware of it. It was pretty nascent at that point. I think it was just kind of developing out of what had been the skiffle movement, and there were very well. We were certainly aware of very few folk clubs at first, and then gradually it may have just been that we only gradually got to hear of them. That found there was one in Farnham just up the road, and another one in Fleet, and so on. So that yes, there a little network rapidly developed, I think.
Yeah. And so was the singer-songwriter, because I know being from Norwich or living in Norwich, there was quite a few famous people came around, like Paul Simon played sort of in a small pub here, and there's a great photograph of Paul Simon, and obviously people like Bert Jansch came here and you know, Martin Carthy. So there was that kind of folk scene, and the protest singer-songwriter. Was that kind of on your radar at all?
Well, there weren't so many singer-songwriters, really. I mean, Martin Carthy I certainly saw, and let's see, John Remborn used to come to local clubs, because he was local, actually. And so I do one of his gigs with Doris Henderson, who was tremendous. I don't think Bert Jansch ever came to the local clubs that I recall. Of course, I may have missed it. I was very young and I didn't have much money, and I must have missed a lot.
Yes. So when you got to 16, did you leave school at that stage, or did you go on to do...
No, I was still at school, yeah.
Yes, but did you go on to A-levels after 16? So you then went that way. And then as the 60s progressed, were you quite interested in that whole counterculture that was happening during that period in the sort of, I don't know, 66, 67 was the summer of love, and that kind of whole sort of psychedelia and sort of hippie movement? Did that sort of come into your consciousness, like people like the Incredible String Band or anybody like that?
Only peripheral, and people played me their albums and so on. But I stress everybody had almost no money, and so it'd be a case of one person getting an incredible string band album and another person getting a Bob Dylan album and playing them to each other,
Yes.
And when I was, when I was 19, I went to university in Bristol, and that was a revelation because I started to go to the Bristol Troubadour club, which was a really good club, well established in a little sort of upstairs and downstairs cellar arrangement in Clifton. And that was run by, Ian A. Anderson,
Yes.
who I later married, readers. And at that time, Ian Anderson, John Turner, a couple of other folk, and there was an incredibly lively scene in Bristol. And they, Bristol Troubadour, got loads of well-known performers down. They somehow had a thing where people would do a Friday night gig in the Bristol Troubadour, or was it a Saturday night gig, and then travel up to London. Saturday evening gig in the Bristol Troubadour, and then travel up to London and do the Cousins all-nighter. I should have said used to go to the Cousins occasionally when I lived in Alton. We used to hitchhike up to London, and sit in the Cousins all night. We heard some amazing things there.
Well, absolutely. God, that sounds quite amazing. What did you study at university, by the way?
Physics and maths.
Right.
But I only lasted a year and a term, and then I dropped out because I had started. Well, I started living with Ian Anderson, and I'd started driving him to gigs. That was all at the time. He didn't drive.
Yes, well, there you go.
Surprising number of musicians, male musicians, don't drive. I noticed that. And so I started driving him to gigs, and this was incompatible with getting up for 9 o'clock lectures every day. So I dropped out, and we got married, and Ian suggested that I learn to play the electric bass so that we could be a duo, so it wouldn't just be him playing the guitar, which I did, having only played acoustic 6-string guitar before, but the bass I picked up fairly quickly. And then we were a touring duo called Hot Vultures for most of the 70s.
Yes, you brought out 3 albums, didn't you?
I think so, yes.
My God. Did that all sort of come together? I mean, the 70s was quite a fascinating period, wasn't it, musically? Everything changed so rapidly in the sense of the 60s had that kind of glorious period, but then it crashed badly, didn't it, with the death of, people like Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Brian Jones had died, and the Beatles split up. So it felt very sort of like, wow, that was all going terribly well. And then it all sort of finished. And then, all the other types of music, genres of music came along, including, prog rock, heavy metal, acoustic singer-songwriters from America, that glam rock period. So it was quite interesting that you'll sort of venture down the folk route. So did you have a bit of a community around the duo? Were you part of a scene at this stage?
What do you mean, a scene?
Well, did you feel like there was a community of like-minded people on the same sort of adventure or the same wavelength as you, that you built up quite a network at this stage?
Well, we had friends, musical colleagues, some of whom did the same kind of the same gigs as we did, and we would sometimes play together. a few of them played on various albums, but a lot of our touring in the 70s as Hot Vultures was done in Belgium and Germany, where we found, we found a very receptive audience. Well, certainly in Belgium anyway. In Germany, oh gosh, the money was better, but the audiences were not quite as receptive.
Right.
And then back in the UK, just the usual round of folk clubs, really.
Yes.
And since we were doing blues and good time music, sometimes the folk clubs looked a little bit askance at us, perhaps felt they weren't sure why they'd booked us, you know. But anyway, yes, we managed.
Can you remember much about the first album that you recorded, which was Carry On On?
Carrying On.
Yes, there you go. What was that process? You sort of were these all cover numbers at this stage that you were doing?
I'd have to look at the sleeve. I don't remember. Well, yeah. They were blues and good time. It was all sort of kind of old songs that we got off old recordings.
Yes, I mean, I was going to say you're quite on a roll during this period, because I've noticed that with a lot of bands, they often have a 4 to 5 year old, 3 to 5 year narrative, and it's like they have a 12-month honeymoon period, then they bring out a single, does quite well. You probably had a slightly different sort of lined up, but then they often bring out 2 to 3 albums quite quickly, and you did that first one, the East Street Shakes, and then Up the Line as well, didn't you? In quite sort of quick succession.
Well, the albums were just basically a record of what we were doing on gigs. They were just the live material recorded, and yeah, and we used to sell the albums on gigs, which was a useful addition to the income.
Yes, well, absolutely. And did you find that you were able to survive just about on sort of your musical adventure at this stage?
Just about, yeah.
That's amazing. Yes.
That's as far as it went, just about, yeah.
And then did you expand the band after that to become the English Country Blues Band?
Yeah,
was that a natural progression at that stage?
Yeah, sort of. It was, again, we'd increasing our circle of friends and musical colleagues. We'd got to know some of the English traditional musicians like Rod Stradling, and in fact, there was I think it was at a Loughborough festival, we had a sort of jam session that included Rod Stradling, probably John Kirkpatrick and Sue Harris, and probably Nick Jones, all rattling away on various English traditional songs, and also on some of our kind of bluesy songs, which was a lot of fun. And so out of that came myself, Ian, Rod Stradling, and Sue Harris was the first manifestation of the English Country Blues Band, yeah.
Yes, and so at that stage you put together, Hot Vulture went to the archives, and this was your next musical adventure into the 80s. Did that feel quite different as we entered another decade? Did that feel like a new beginning?
Not really, no, just felt like a progression, just a development.
Yes, and you started doing more. Did you sort of musically change much at this stage?
Not really. I developed a bit as a singer because I'd never sung terribly much. I'd started to sing just harmony with Ian, and then eventually found my voice thanks to Martin Carthy. I had previously sung in a rather high, wimpy voice, and Martin one time he poked me in the diaphragm and said, "Why don't you sing in your voice that comes from down there, the voice you speak with?" And he actually, I went, and he kind of explained how to do it, and my gosh, yes, I didn't look back after that.
It all changed.
Yes.
And was
Nice
that a particularly harmonious period? The sort of the kind of beginning to that term musical adventure.
Harmonious.
Yes, everyone looks very happy on the sleeve.
Oh, yeah, it was fine. It was very good. Yes, yes. And then no, on the first sleeve it's just cartoons of
Yes.
us, but it's on the second album when Sue Harris had been replaced by Chris Coe. There is a photo of the four of us looking quite cheerful. Yeah, it was very enjoyable. Very
Yes.
enjoyable.
Did you have any kind of master plan at this time as we sort of crept into the 80s? And because I did about a month ago, I did an interview with one of the original members of Blowzabella, who was talking about their kind of time in music and the band. Did you find that folk music was beginning to be kind of a bigger audience during the 80s than you had possibly earlier?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah. Noticeable at festivals, perhaps. But no, there was no master plan. There was never a master plan.
Because one of the interesting things, and I was very excited with this, your next musical chapter, was that in the 80s, I remember I must have got a copy of Folk Roots magazine, and back in those days, you could never listen to a record often before you buy it. So I thought, oh look, this has been made album of the month. It must be fantastic. So I went and bought it, and it was the Tiger Moth album. It was the second one at that stage, and not many people know that record at all, and so it's never been one that I've managed to sort of drop into any conversation. But actually, you that is the band that you then morph into, isn't it?
Yes, it was just an expansion of the English Country Blues Band. It had the basic me, Ian, Rod, and Chris, and it added John Moore on power chord electric guitar and the blessed John Maxwell on drums. Yes, so that we were able to make an incredible racket, very enjoyable. We played a lot of, a few big ceilidhs here and there, but also quite a few festivals.
Yes, the ceilidh market was quite big at this stage, wasn't it?
And the volume was very satisfying.
Yes, and the sleeves are all very dramatic. They're almost like the Roger Dean covers that Yes used to have.
They're by Rodney Matthews.
Right.
He's not Roger Dean, but he's Rodney Matthews. He did a lot of covers for Michael Moorcock, science fiction writer.
Right. So there you go. And did you feel, because at that stage in the 80s as well, I was getting very much into the world of John Peel, and he was often playing lots of, music from around the world. Did you find that the festival scene like Glastonbury, and I think WOMAD happened a bit later on, were people again sort of becoming a little bit more interested in, I don't know, world music and different sounds at this stage? Was that sort of impacting on the creative force of the band?
I really couldn't say. We just kind of played our music. We just went where people asked us to go and did our thing. Because if you're working all the time, playing gigs, you're kind of in a bubble. You don't get to hear much by other performers.
Right.
You don't get to hear much radio. I mean, in those days, we didn't have a radio in our van. So we didn't even listen to the radio when we were driving. So we used to listen to John Peel, of course, when we were at home, but
Yes.
great stuff. Yes.
It was fine stuff, Mr. Peel. Yes, I was obsessed with him. Did you? Yes, and then sort of 83, before Tiger Moth, you brought out your first solo album, Still Pause.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Still Pause, yes.
Yes. So was that quite a big decision to think, right, I need to do my own stuff and step away from other people?
No, it was just a suggestion of Ian's. Why don't you do a solo album? Because I'd kept singing solo, just learning songs, and in fact had an even greater, had a vast repertoire of songs by other people, some traditional, some by other songwriters.
Yes.
And so no, it was just a suggestion of Ian. So yeah, I made the album.
Blimey, that was, and Rogue Records, whose label is that?
That was Ian's.
Right. It makes sense at this stage, doesn't it? You certainly were sort of on the the inner sanctum of was Folk Roots going at that stage?
Yeah, that started about, well, not sure when it started actually. Maybe early 80s, certainly. And that was definitely Ian's baby. It was I mean, I wrote a little bit for it and did occasional reviews, but it was completely his thing. And he had, let's see. No, I can't place the year. But anyway, he started it as a thing called Southern Rag. Its initial, and it was only quarterly, I think, beginning.
Yes.
Its initial impetus was to make a local folk magazine about the scene in the southeast of England, southern central England, that was not London, because there was a lot of very London-centric media.
Yes.
London-based magazines. And Ian said, let's have something for this area, which is because we were living in Farnham, just 10 miles up the road from where I grew up by then.
Yes, and there you go. And it sort of steamrolled, really, didn't it? It certainly did well. And its summer edition, or the festival edition, was always a bit of a essential purchase, really, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah,
it was quite amazing. So what was, when you came to record your second album for Tiger Moth, what was the atmosphere like with the band at this stage? Because that was 87, 88, wasn't it? Howlin' Moth. Were you all in a very sort of good creative space at this stage?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. It's fine. Time to make another album. We just piled in.
Yes.
It was very enjoyable.
I would love to see who wrote the review of the album and made it album of the month, actually. That review worked wonders for me, because I went and bought it.
I've no idea. I don't know who that was.
When that happened, did you tour that album as well? When that came out, were you on the road with that particular release?
Well, we were never really on the road with Tiger Moth. We didn't do tours. We just did one-off gigs, festivals and so on.
Yes.
So being on the road would have been unfeasible with that many
people,
musicians.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when that album came out and we trundled towards the late 80s, where did you then go sort of musically from there? Was there a conversation or some decision made not to make a third album and keep Tiger Moth going?
Well, at that point, I left Ian. I split up with Ian, and I moved to Oxford. It was around that time, and we were still doing Tiger Moth gigs. I was still playing in a little three-piece ceilidh band around Farnham and Farnborough. But when I moved to Oxford, I formed a duo with a fine singer and squeezebox player called Dave Parry. And I also, slightly preceding that, sorry, I made an album with John Moore, which it was an album that was suggested by an Italian record label. Said, "Oh, why can't Maggie make a modern album?" he said. And so with John Moore, I made a modern album. And then there was some financial crisis in Italy, and the poor guy couldn't put it out at all. So Ian issued it as just it was a bit longer than an EP. I think it was 6 tracks, something like that.
Yes, it is 6 tracks.
It's called a shortcut. Yeah. So that was just me, John Moore, doing all the electronics. He was very clever. It was at a very early stage of the electronic revolution, really.
Yes. God, that's amazing. So that came out a shortcut on Rogue Records eventually. So that was your sort of 86 release. Then there was the last Tiger Moth album, and then your move. So then a change of location to Oxford, and then there's sort of your next solo album at this stage.
Yeah, that sort of came at the same time. I did a bit of work with John Moore and a keyboard player called Kevin Mason as Maggie's Farm. And we did a number of gigs. We notably did a tour for the British Council in Bangladesh, which not many people have done.
No.
But we never recorded Maggie's Farm. That was more, it was stuff along the lines of what was on the shortcut, really, I suppose. And then, yes, I made another album, Down to the Bone. I was living in Oxford, and I made it. A friend who's a very good recording engineer, but he invited me into his loft in a little village outside Oxford, and we recorded it completely acoustic and very simply there.
Yes, which features the classic song Levi Stubbs' Tears.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Did you like the original?
Yeah, that's why I learned it.
That's why, yes, I know. A bit obvious, really, wasn't it? Yes. And at that stage, were you sort of able to make, was the kind of music enough to keep you going, or were you sort of having to sort of juggle different?
Oh, if you mean financially, no, not at all. I got work as a maths tutor in a crammer in Oxford, because, I mean, I'd started out doing maths after school, but given up on it. But while we were touring, I had got myself a degree in maths with the Open University. And so I was able to, be a maths tutor.
Right.
Which is really a lot more lucrative than playing music.
Well, no, I would imagine, yes. But then you sort of the mid-90s, you bring out By Heart, which is on Rhiannon Records. Who is that your next release? Have I right on that?
Yeah, I think it must be. By then, I'd moved up to Edinburgh. I moved up 1993. I moved up to Edinburgh, and the Rhiannon album was just a suggestion from the guy who ran Rhiannon, a chap called Colin Jones. Yeah.
Right, the executive producer. I can see it's all here, and you recorded it at the Sound Cafe.
Oh yeah, that was a little studio in Pennycook, just outside Edinburgh. But in fact, the guy Dave who ran it has now got a much more state-of-the-art studio a little bit further out of Edinburgh. which I've been to a couple of times, but
nice one.
Yeah.
And then you start the track with the Oxford Girl. Is this sort of your selection of songs at this point? Which one? How did you come around choosing which ones you wanted to cover? By the way,
just songs I liked, songs I thought would be a bit of variety on the album. As I said before, I've got such a huge repertoire that I can really pick and choose.
yes.
I mean, I'd started writing songs in the late 80s, very slowly, but I had written a few songs, and so I was adding in my own.
Yes, I noticed that, yes, Perfumes of Arabia was one of the most famous ones that you did. A Place Called England as well, which came a bit later. So, yeah. And then because I kind of came across me in the 90s. I can't remember who ran Irregular Records. Was it a chap called
Rob Johnson.
Rob Johnson, the famous. How did you come across Rob Johnson?
Oh. We'd known Rob back from in Hot Vultures days. I remember Rob when he was a student at Sussex University. He booked us at the folk club there. Then he went on to do a master's degree in Manchester, and he booked us there at the postgraduate club. And then he went on to do a teaching qualification at Mariah Gray in Twickenham, and he booked us there. And of course, he was based in Hounslow, so relatively close. So we got to know Rob quite well. He gave us a cassette of his songs. Oh gosh, probably about 1980. I don't know. And I remember Ian saying, "Cool, how about you learning that song?" And I think that was the first. Yes, it was the first Rob Johnson song I learnt, which was "England's Power and Glory,"
right?
Which appears on a English Country Blues Band album. Yeah, it's really quite a savage song about the genocide of the Tasmanians.
Yes, well, quite. It's yes, always a bit humbling and embarrassing, really. The sort of the history of the empire.
Yes,
never wanted.
Whenever I do that song, which I don't do it very often, but if I do, I say to audiences in Scotland, "You can be glad that you were left out of this." England's power and glory, although there were a lot of Scots involved, unfortunately, as well.
Yes, that was quite something. So at that stage, the sort of 90s, were you beginning to feel still quite a lot of love for sort of the music world? And because you sort of record the next two albums, and then there's a massive break, isn't there, after that? There's he says, reading this, Getting There is your next one, followed by Circle of Light, both on Irregular Records, and then a 20-year gap, actually.
I've just been staying in... I've been in Leith all that time. Really, I moved on from being tutoring maths in a crammer to... Well, I did a bit of tutoring in a crammer in Edinburgh, but then I got to work with the Open University, which was much better quality of student. And eventually I got a full-time job with the Open University. So I did a full-time job with them for 10 years, which was quite all absorbing. Although I was still playing music and doing the occasional gig, I didn't have any spare brain capacity to write many songs or anything like that.
Well, yes, absolutely. It does take a lot of kind of emotional sort of, I don't know, calm to sort of to think outside a sort of a busy day schedule, really, doesn't it? So then when sort of lockdown came, how did that because obviously the Dust of Rage comes out sort of, well, last year actually.
Yeah.
Was this something that started to get sort of an idea during the lockdown period, making
Yes,
another?
my friend John, the engineer, who recorded Circle of Light. I mean, he has his studio. It's about 200 yards away from here. Again, a fantastic state-of-the-art studio. He does most of the recording. He does is for things like advertising, videos, really high-powered promotional stuff. He does the sound and the visuals as well. Well, he does the sound for the visuals. During lockdown, he had to produce all the information videos for the Scottish government, telling people about the lockdown conditions and, masks and vaccinations and all that kind of stuff. And as a result, people in Scotland generally felt we were much better informed about what was going on than were people in England. And it was probably John's videos because he was so good. But anyway, we reckoned, I could make another album, it was during lockdown. So I would go around to his place and scuttle down to the basement and we're only doing a couple of sessions, a couple of hours a week, really.
Yes.
So it took a long time.
Yes. And when did that start? Did that start sort of 21 or 22?
Possibly end of 21. I'd have to look it up. I don't.
Yes.
It went on for a long time.
And did you sort of organically bring the tracks together, or did you sort of have a collection of the 16 and think these are the ones I'm going to do, or did it chop and change?
I had a good idea of what I wanted to do. In fact, I recorded more than we used on the album, and a couple didn't make the grade. Pity there was a Rob Johnson song that I just felt I hadn't done a good enough version of it. I wasn't happy with the version I did. Because I nearly always do a Rob Johnson song, sometimes two, on live gigs. And so he was a bit disappointed that I hadn't included it. But
it's on the regular records as well.
Yeah.
So yes. There you go. So does that mean, was it the case then that it's only recently that you started doing live shows again, or were you always doing live?
I've always done. I've always done live shows, but I have to be asked, and I don't get many offers of gigs at all. Never have done, and of course, I had continued after I was just doing solo work. I continued to go to Belgium about once a year and do a few gigs there. Very enjoyable. But unfortunately, Brexit has put paid to all that. So I just do a handful of gigs in the UK now.
Yes. It's been heartbreaking, really, the live circuit scene.
It's completely sort of trashed the music industry in an entirely predictable way. But would they listen? No.
I know. Well, actually, before Brexit, I remember quite a few bands and artists had to rely on that European tour that they would do.
Yeah.
Once a year, they would dust themselves down and think, right, let's go and do Europe. It's going to be hard work, as we're all now in our 60s and 70s. But this is what it's all about. Let's go through Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Belgium. A lot of bands or artists always mention the German
Germany, yes,
audience. A few people have a niche one, like, oh yes, we're big in Italy and quite big in Spain. It was always interesting how certain people had their audience in a certain country, and but it was like, yes, that's what I've got to do. 30 dates, 30 days, just get on with it, do it, come home and sleep for a few months to recover. But yeah, I don't know how. I guess most people have got to that retirement age and thought, it's got to just drop that one-time moment that we used to have touring Europe. So it's so heartbreaking, really, because you think, God, that's the one great export that we could talk about, but with a certain amount of pride in a way. So there you go. So have you had a good summer? Have you played a few dates, haven't you, recently? In August?
Handful. Oh, well, I did, but that was self-propelling. I did 3 shows at the beginning of the Fringe via a setup called the Free Fringe, which is it's not the official Fringe because all the gigs are free.
Yes.
So you just pass the bucket at the end, and people give what they can afford. No, very enjoyable. Yeah, I just did 3 shows in a venue in Leith at the beginning of the Fringe, and in fact, I went up. Was it yesterday? Yeah, to see the person who recommended the Free Fringe to me was Attila, the stockbroker, and he was doing his last show, and I'd promised I'd go and see him. His last show yesterday, he'd done 14 on the trot, and said he was going to try and do a different set every day of the 14 because his repertoire is so huge.
Yes.
And he was in fine ranting form. Very good to see him.
Nice. Yes. Do you go back a long way with Attila?
Not an enormous way, but yeah, yes.
Quite a long way.
Yeah.
And was it you who did the Bandcamp page for your music as well? Was that something that you...
Yeah, that's just, I can only put, because of Bandcamp's setup, I can't put any songs on there that are not my own copyright. Well, you can if you get written permission from the copyright holder, which would not be a problem in the case of, say, Rob Johnson.
Yes.
But if anybody buys a track, I have to have had an agreement with them to pay them however many, pence per play, and it would be an administrative nightmare. So I've chosen just to put up my own songs.
Yes, well, absolutely. You'd have to have a very big Excel spreadsheet fiddling around with 1 or 2 pence.
Yeah. And the only exception is the song "The Proper Sort of Gardener," which John Moore wrote the tune for, but I got his permission, and I said I would pay him something. Forget what. I think I must owe him at least a £5 by now.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I expect his pension, his winter will be sort of well supplemented. So now going forward then, have you got any plans? I mean, I know this album only came out last year, but is it the case that you're feeling that there's going to be other material being released in the next couple of years?
I don't know. It depends if I write anything. I learn new songs, even if I don't write any. I have written one since the album. That's on the Bandcamp page, "Farewell to Yesnaby." It's for my friend Dave Evans, who died during lockdown. Dave Evans, fantastic musician.
Yes.
Musician, luthier, ceramicist, cook, songwriter, everything.
Oh,
yeah, he died during lockdown, and he died in Brussels, which is where he lived. But he wanted to be buried, if possible, in Stromness in Orkney, where his grandparents are buried. And his cousin, who is an absolutely brilliant administrator, fortunately, managed to organise it. But this is during lockdown, and so I went to the funeral, which is a long journey from Edinburgh to, well, you have to go Edinburgh to Thurso on the train. That's takes a very long time.
Yes.
Very, very long time. And then quite a fast ferry from Scrabster to Stromness. But it was all locked down, and I was not allowed to stay with his cousin, and I had to. Oh dear. Anyway, that's where that song came from.
Wow, that is quite the epic number, isn't it?
Well, the journey was epic. It was very cold.
Yeah, God.
There was no heating in the train, probably for health and safety reasons, and no trolley. So, between Inverness and Thurso, it's something like 4 hours. Stops everywhere. No cup of tea. Oh dear. Yeah.
Wow. Yes, you must have a lot of time to contemplate everything.
Yes, if you listen to the track, you'll hear. Yes, I was contemplating all the station names. There are dozens of them as you sort of trundle up this line to Thurso.
Well, probably hard at the time, but probably never something that you'll always remember for.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very glad that I was able to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible. And if you were able to whisper something to your 16-year-old self starting out in this interest in life, I mean, going back to that 60s, the mid-60s, is there anything in particular that you'd have thought, oh, that would have been a good idea to have done or a good idea to have focused on?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I suppose if I had had that hint from Martin Carthy about my voice earlier, that would have gone well. Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of sounding like a bit of a wimp.
And when you look back at this amazing body of work which spans so long, is there any particular album that you've got the fondest memories or the proudest kind of album that you think, oh, that is one that you absolutely love?
No, I guess one always thinks the most recent one, but
yes, absolutely,
probably not. I couldn't put a reason on that. No, I'm not. I'm not embarrassed about any of them, but some definitely better than others.
Yeah.
I mean, the shortcut that I made with John Moore, that was, well, not my favourite, but certainly interesting stuff. It still sounds interesting. We did a song by Time and Dog, for example. That I still do.
So which track is that?
It's called Locks and Bolts and Hinges.
Oh, I will check it out, actually. That's just
Bang goes society's door. Locked and bolted metal jaw. Bang goes society's door. Won't hang like it did before. Once we've found our love of trust, surprising what we save in cost for. Locks and bolts and hinges for our stuff.
Beautiful. There you
Time
go.
and Dog.
There you go. It's got to be checked out, actually. But look, thank you ever so much for this, Maggie. I'm so pleased to have managed to line this up. And if you want, I can always send you a link of the interview that you can use on any of your websites or any other pages that you might wish to use or not.
Sure.
But yes, thank you for your story, because it's always interesting to hear someone's the narrative that happens and the creative paths that people take, which is always fascinating and of its time, isn't it, really?
Yes. I mean, I think that the main thing to take away is that there was no plan.
There was no plan.
No.
But yeehaw for the 70s, really. Being able to womble through the 70s like that was great.
Okay.
Yes. Well, look, thank you. I hope we managed to see the moon tonight. Who knows?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Well, there's breaks in the clouds, so maybe.
Yes. Anyway, look, take care, and thanks again for your time.
You're most welcome.
Thank you,
and send me a link when it's
done.
Listenable.
Yes, I will. Okay, take care. Okay. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks
Have a nice
a lot,
evening.
David.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
And that was me in conversation with Maggie Holland, talking about her life in music. This has been the 86 Show. David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.